They have suggested that we call our wedding off.
It's kind of like either you sign it or I don't want to marry you. That's not fair. Let's talk.
I'm asking you to talk. I'm asking you to tell me what is it that you wanted to say.
I want it to become a proper document. He said that.
How is it not a proper document, Todd?
I'm not the attorney. Let's call the attorney. Let's call the attorney and let him talk.
Call him right now, please. I want him to tell me what is not proper.
Come on, let's go.
Please call.
No, my dream is to teach you to be self-sufficient. And you know what? Time out. Can I say what I'm saying?
Go ahead.
You to be independent. If you get my money, it's a bonus.
Life lesson.
If your parents are not here to teach you.
And that's a perfect word. You always want to teach a lesson.
They filmed their entire wedding for Bravo, 5 episodes, cameras capturing every moment, every signature, every tear. Kandi Burruss thought those episodes would be entertainment, but somewhere in Bravo's vaults sits unedited footage she never wanted anyone to see, raw moments that didn't make the cut. And now, Todd Tucker is using that same reality TV footage as a weapon in court. Legal experts across the country are watching closely because what's on those tapes could unravel a prenuptial agreement that was supposed to be bulletproof. And if he wins, it changes everything we thought we knew about celebrity prenups. November 21st, 2024. That's when Kandi Burruss walked into a Georgia courthouse and filed for divorce from Todd Tucker, ending their 11-year marriage. The news sent shockwaves through the Real Housewives of Atlanta fan base. After all, this was the couple that seemed different. The couple that worked, the couple that built businesses together, raised children together, and weathered every storm that reality television could throw at them. But behind the carefully curated Instagram posts and public appearances, something had fractured. And now, as the divorce purging unfolds, we're discovering that the battle between Kandi and Todd isn't just about the end of a marriage. It's about money, millions of dollars. It's about custody of their 2 young children. And most dramatically, it's about a prenuptial agreement that Todd Tucker now says should never be enforced. When Kandi first filed for divorce, she immediately asked the court to seal the proceedings. She wanted privacy. She wanted discretion. She wanted to handle this devastating chapter of her life away from the cameras that had documented so much of her journey. But in the age of social media and reality television fame, privacy is a luxury few can afford. The story leaked, the details began trickling out, and what we're learning is far more complex than anyone anticipated. In the days following the filing, Kandi took to social media with a message that resonated with thousands of her followers. She thanked everyone for their support and shared something vulnerable. Check in on your strong friend, she wrote, because even the people who seem to have it all together, even the women who build empires and inspire millions, sometimes they're barely holding it together behind closed doors. The response was overwhelming, her comment section filled with messages of love, encouragement, and solidarity. But then something interesting started happening. Every time Kandi would post about her emotional state, carefully avoiding specific details about the divorce itself, Todd would make his own social media post, not directly responding, not calling her out, but posting in a way that seemed designed to garner similar sympathy. It felt like a shadow dance, 2 people who once shared everything now competing for public support while their lawyers battled in private. And then US Weekly dropped a bombshell report that changed the entire narrative. Todd Tucker wasn't just going through a divorce, he was going to war, and his primary weapon, a legal challenge to the prenuptial agreement he signed back in April of 2014. Now, for those unfamiliar with prenuptial agreements, here's what you need to understand. A prenup is essentially a contract created before marriage that determines how assets will be divided if the marriage ends. In the world of celebrity marriages, especially when one partner has significantly more wealth than the other, prenups are standard practice. They're meant to protect what you built before the relationship, to ensure that a divorce doesn't destroy the financial empire you created independently. Kandi Burruss came into her marriage with Todd Tucker as a wealthy woman. She'd been a member of the legendary R&B group Escape. She'd won Grammy Awards. She'd written hit songs including Bills, Bills, Bills for Destiny's Child, one of the most iconic tracks of the late 90s. She'd built a business portfolio that included restaurants, a sex toy line, and various other ventures. By the time she met Todd, who worked as a producer on Real Housewives of Atlanta, she was already a millionaire many times over. So when they decided to get married, a prenuptial agreement made sense. It was logical. It was smart business. And according to Kandi, Todd understood this. He had his own attorney. They discussed the terms for months. Everything was above board. But now, Todd Tucker is telling a very different story, and according to legal experts who've reviewed the situation, his story might actually hold up in court. The challenge centers on 3 critical factors, and this is where it gets fascinating from a legal standpoint. In the state of Georgia, for a prenuptial agreement to be considered valid and enforceable, it must meet specific requirements. First, it must be entered into voluntarily by both parties. Second, there must be full financial disclosure from both sides. And third, there can be no coercion, no undue pressure, no circumstances that would make someone feel they had no choice but to sign. Todd Tucker's legal team is building their case around the timing of when he signed that prenup, and this is where those Bravo cameras become crucial evidence. According to multiple sources close to the situation, Todd signed the final version of the prenuptial agreement on his wedding day, not weeks before, not even days before, the actual day he was supposed to walk down the aisle and marry the woman he loved, and he signed it without his attorney present. Holly Davidson, a founding partner at a major law firm who spoke exclusively to US Weekly about this case, explained something that many people don't realize. When someone signs a prenuptial agreement in the hours or even days immediately before their wedding, they're creating grounds for a future legal challenge, because the argument can be made that they were under duress, that they felt pressured, that the emotional circumstances surrounding a wedding, the guests already arrived, the venue already paid for, the family already gathered, created an environment where saying no wasn't really an option. Now, Davidson was careful to note that timing alone isn't enough to overturn a prenup. Todd would need to prove that his situation meets certain specific factors under Georgia law. But here's where it gets interesting. While she believes Todd had plenty of time leading up to the wedding to review the agreement and consult with his attorney, there's a scenario where his challenge could succeed. If Kandi's legal team fraudulently claimed that Todd's attorney had reviewed and approved the final terms when they actually hadn't, that could be grounds for invalidation. And according to Davidson, the fact that Todd had an attorney on retainer and had been discussing the prenup with that attorney for months before the wedding actually works against his argument in most scenarios. It shows he had access to legal counsel. It shows he understood what was happening. It shows he had time to negotiate. But then there's the footage. The unedited, unaired raw footage from Kandi's wedding, the 5-part Bravo documentary that chronicled their journey down the aisle. Attorney Kate Merriman, another legal expert who weighed in on the case, pointed out something crucial. Georgia law requires full financial disclosure, voluntariness, and the absence of coercion for a prenup to be enforceable. If Todd can demonstrate that any one of these elements was missing when he signed, the entire agreement could crumble. And this is where the wedding footage becomes the star witness. Think about it. Bravo cameras documented everything. They were there for the tense conversations. They were there for the family meetings. They were there in the room when Todd sat down to sign the final documents. What we saw in the edited episodes was dramatic. It showed tension. It showed Todd grappling with a major decision. It showed a man signing an agreement literally hours before walking down the aisle. But edited footage is just that, edited. Reality television producers craft narratives. They create story arcs, they heighten drama through selective editing and strategic music cues. What played out over 5 weekly episodes might have actually happened over a much longer time frame. Or conversely, things might have been even more intense than what made it to air. The unedited footage could reveal several things that would help Todd's case. If those tapes show Kandi or members of her family explicitly pressuring him, setting ultimatums, creating emotionally charged circumstances that made him feel he had to sign or lose everything, that's powerful evidence. If the footage shows last-minute changes to the agreement that Todd didn't have time to review, that supports his argument. If it captures him trying to reach his attorney and being unable to get through, or being told there's no time to wait for legal advice, that demonstrates he wasn't given proper opportunity to consult independent counsel. On the flip side, the footage could also completely undermine his case. If those unedited tapes show calm, rational discussions happening weeks before the wedding, if they show Todd's attorney on the phone confirming everything looks good, if they show Todd saying on camera that he's comfortable with the terms and understands exactly what he's signing, then his challenge falls apart. But here's what makes this situation so extraordinary. Reality television is now being used as evidence in a legal proceeding. The same cameras that were meant to entertain millions of viewers are now being subpoenaed to provide testimony in a divorce court. It's a bizarre collision of entertainment and law, and it could set precedents that affect how reality stars approach prenuptial agreements going forward. Another attorney, Jonathan Witz, who specializes in high conflict, high asset custody, and prenup litigation, offered yet another angle on why Todd's challenge might succeed. He pointed out that the absence of legal counsel at the moment of signing is just one factor courts consider. What matters even more is whether the agreement itself is one-sided, whether it unfairly deprives one party of rights they would otherwise have under law. So even if Todd had an attorney who advised him throughout the process, if the final agreement is extremely lopsided in Kandi's favor, if it strips Todd of access to marital wealth in a way that's unconscionable under Georgia law, that alone could be enough to convince a judge to throw it out. Based on what's been reported, the prenup essentially protected everything Kandi owned before the marriage. A house they lived in, that was hers. Her businesses, those were hers. Her existing wealth, completely off limits. What Todd would have access to in a divorce would be limited to assets they accumulated together during the marriage. And there's been mention of a clause requiring him to vacate their marital home within 30 days if they separated. 30 days. To pack up your life, find a new place to live, and move out. Even in the best circumstances, that's an incredibly tight timeline. For someone going through the trauma of divorce, potentially fighting for custody of their children, that clause seems designed to create immediate displacement and vulnerability. These are the kinds of times that courts look at and question, is this fair? Is this reasonable? Or is this an agreement written entirely to benefit one party while leaving the other with nothing? The legal experts are split on how this will play out, but they all agree on one thing. This isn't a slam dunk for either side. Kandi has strong arguments. Todd has strong counter arguments. And ultimately, it's going to come down to what a judge decides after reviewing all the evidence, including that crucial Bravo footage. But the prenup battle isn't the only war being fought in this divorce. There's another even more emotionally charged issue on the table. Custody of their two young children. Todd and Kandi share two kids together, their son Ace, who's 9 years old, and their daughter Blaze, who's 6. These are young children who've grown up with cameras around them, who've seen their parents navigate the pressures of fame, and who now have to process the reality that mom and dad won't be together anymore. Initially, when Kandi filed for divorce, she requested joint custody, a standard arrangement where both parents share care and decision-making responsibility relatively equally. It's what many family court experts recommend because it allows children to maintain strong relationships with both parents. But Todd Tucker came out swinging. He filed a response demanding primary custody. His argument, Kandi's work schedule requires her to be away from their children for extended periods, and that he's the more present parent who should have the kids living with him primarily. It's a bold move, and one that clearly caught Kandi off guard. Her response was swift and pointed. She argued that both of them have careers that require travel. She's built an empire, yes, but Todd is also working in entertainment production. He's out of Atlanta just as frequently as she is. The idea that she's an absent mother while he's the devoted stay-at-home dad simply doesn't match reality. And then Kandi did something that shows just how serious she is about this fight. She amended her custody request. She's no longer asking for joint custody. Now she wants sole custody, with Todd having visitation rights. This is where divorce gets ugly. Two people who once loved each other enough to build a life together are now in court arguing about who's the better parent, who spends more time with the kids, who's more equipped to handle the daily responsibilities of raising children. It's heartbreaking. It's necessary in the eyes of the law. And it's almost certainly damaging to everyone involved. Kandi made a point of highlighting their support system. She noted that their children have a nanny. They have grandparents who live within 5 to 20 miles of the family residence. They have aunts, uncles, cousins, an entire network of family who can step in when both parents are traveling for work. The kids aren't being neglected or left to fend for themselves. They have a concentrated family support structure that many children would envy. But Todd's attorneys are apparently arguing that this support system, while nice, doesn't replace the need for a primary parent who's consistently present. And if Kandi is about to spend several months on Broadway, as she's scheduled to do with her role in the musical adaptation of a major production, how can she claim to be the primary caregiver? It's a legitimate question, even if it's being asked in the context of a contentious legal battle. These are the kinds of custody arguments that family court judges hear every day, though usually not involving people with millions of dollars in reality television cameras documenting their every move. The custody fight is still ongoing, with both sides presenting evidence about their parenting capabilities, their work schedules, and their visions for how they'll co-parent moving forward. What happens in that courtroom will determine where Ace and Blaze spend their time, whose house they call home, and how they navigate life with separated parents. But then, just when it seemed like this divorce was headed for maximum hostility, something unexpected happened. Something that made everyone watching this saga pause and wonder if maybe, just maybe, there's hope for an amicable resolution. Thanksgiving 2024, despite everything happening in court, despite the custody battle and the prenup challenge and all the legal maneuvering, Kandi and Todd came together to celebrate the holiday with their children. They put their differences aside, at least for one day, to give Ace and Blaze what every child of divorce desperately needs: the feeling that their family, even in its new configuration, still exists. It was a powerful statement, a reminder that underneath all the legal paperwork and courtroom arguments, these are two people who created a family together, two people who, despite everything, still have to figure out how to raise their children in a way that doesn't cause permanent damage. And then came the really surprising development. Kandi Burruss landed a role on Broadway. She's set to star in a major musical production, a significant career achievement that represents her continuing evolution as an entertainer. She appeared on The View to perform, showcasing her vocal talents to a national audience. The performance was impressive, a reminder of why Kandi has remained relevant in entertainment for decades. Most people expected Todd to stay silent about this achievement. After all, they're in the middle of a contentious divorce. His attorneys are literally arguing that her work schedule makes her an unfit primary parent. Publicly celebrating her Broadway debut would seem to undercut his legal strategy. But Todd Tucker surprised everyone. He posted a video clip of himself watching Kandi's performance, and his caption was nothing but supportive. He congratulated her. He told her to keep inspiring people and doing her thing. He tagged her in the post, making sure she'd see it. And Kandi responded. She thanked him. She added a heart emoji. 6 hours after he posted, she acknowledged his support in a way that felt genuine and warm. The comment section exploded with speculation. People wondering if this meant they were reconciling. Others suggesting it was all for show, a public relations move to make them both look good. Some applauded them for being mature and putting their children first. And then, to further fuel the speculation, there were comments from other people in their circle, people who've been part of their story throughout their relationship, all showing support for Kandi's achievement, all seeming to indicate that despite the legal warfare, there's no deep personal animosity tearing them apart. So what does all this mean? How do we reconcile the image of two people battling over millions of dollars in custody of their children with the image of those same two people publicly supporting each other and celebrating Thanksgiving as a family? The truth is, probably somewhere in the complicated middle. Divorce is rarely simple. It's entirely possible to love someone, to want the best for them, to support their dreams and achievements while also acknowledging that the marriage itself is over. It's possible to be angry about financial arrangements while still respecting someone as a parent and a person. What legal experts are saying is that this shift toward public civility could actually signal a change in strategy. If Kandi and Todd are able to communicate respectfully, if they're able to co-parent effectively, that might make their attorneys' jobs easier. Contentious divorces are expensive. They're emotionally draining. They take years to resolve. Amicable divorces, where both parties are willing to negotiate and compromise, get resolved faster and with far less damage to everyone involved. But the fundamental legal questions remain unanswered. Will a judge decide that Todd's prenup challenge has merit? Will that agreement, signed on a wedding day in front of Bravo cameras, be deemed unenforceable under Georgia law? Or will Kandi's position hold that Todd knew exactly what he was signing and had every opportunity to walk away if he wasn't comfortable with the terms? And what about custody? Will the judge award primary custody to Todd, agreeing with his argument that he's the more present parent? Will Kandi's request for sole custody be granted based on her support network and her argument that both of them travel for work? Or will they end up with a joint custody arrangement after all, the original request that Kandi made before things escalated? These questions will be answered in a Georgia courtroom, probably over the course of many months. Divorce proceedings involve significant assets, and custody disputes rarely resolve quickly. There will be depositions, there will be expert witnesses, there will be financial disclosures and parenting evaluations. And yes, there will likely be hours of Bravo footage reviewed frame by frame, looking for evidence of coercion or voluntariness in those moments before Todd Tucker signed his name on that prenuptial agreement. What we're witnessing is more than just another celebrity divorce. This case could have implications for how prenuptial agreements are handled going forward, especially in situations where the signing is documented on film. It raises questions about the intersection of entertainment and legal proceedings. It forces us to consider what it means to make major life decisions while cameras are rolling, while producers are shaping narratives, while the line between reality and reality television becomes impossibly blurred. For Kandi Burruss, this divorce represents a potential threat to everything she built. If that prenup is thrown out, if a judge decides that Georgia's marital property laws should apply without the protections she thought she had in place, she could be looking at losing a significant portion of her wealth, not because she did anything wrong, but because a contract she believed was solid turns out to have been signed under circumstances the court deems problematic. For Todd Tucker, this divorce is his chance to fight for what he believes he's entitled to. He spent 11 years as Kandi's husband. He supported her career, he appeared on her reality show, he helped raise their children, and according to him, contributed to the growth of their joint wealth during the marriage. If that prenup is enforced as written, he walks away with far less than he would be entitled to under standard Georgia divorce law. His challenge isn't about being vindictive. From his perspective, it's about fairness. And caught in the middle of all this are two young children who didn't ask to be part of a public divorce drama. Ace and Blaze Tucker will grow up knowing that their parents' split played out in tabloids and on social media. They'll be able to look back and watch footage of the prenup signing that's now at the center of a legal battle. They'll read articles about custody disputes and financial arguments. That's a heavy burden for any child to carry, which is perhaps why both Kandi and Todd seem to be making an effort to show that despite everything happening in court, they can still be civil with each other. They can still support each other's achievements. They can still come together for holidays and important moments in their children's lives. The legal experts will continue to debate the merits of Todd's prenup challenge. Attorneys who specialize in family law will watch this case closely because the outcome could influence how they advise their own clients. Reality television producers might think twice about filming prenup signings, recognizing that those dramatic moments could later be used as evidence of coercion. And couples everywhere, especially those where one partner has significantly more wealth, will pay attention to the importance of timing, independent legal counsel, and ensuring that prenuptial agreements are entered into under circumstances that can't later be questioned. But at its core, this is a story about two people who fell in love, built a life together, and are now trying to figure out how to unbuild that life in a way that's fair to everyone involved. It's about the complexities of modern marriage, where business and romance intertwine, where reality television documents intimate moments, and where the end of a relationship becomes a legal puzzle with millions of dollars at stake. The judge in this case has an enormous responsibility. They have to look at all the evidence, including that Bravo footage, and determine what really happened on that wedding day in April 2014. They have to decide whether Todd Tucker signed that prenup freely and voluntarily, with full knowledge of what he was agreeing to, or whether the circumstances created pressure that made his signature less than truly voluntary. They also have to make decisions that will affect the daily lives of two young children, determining where they'll live, how much time they'll spend with each parent, and how custody will be structured going forward. These aren't abstract legal questions. They're decisions that will shape the childhood experiences of Ace and Blaze Tucker in profound ways. As this case moves forward, we'll continue to learn more about what happened behind the scenes of Kandi's wedding. We'll hear testimony from people who were there that day. We'll see evidence that wasn't included in the edited episodes that aired on Bravo. And we'll watch as a judge weighs all of that information to make determinations about enforceability and fairness. What's already clear is that this divorce is far from the simple dissolution of a marriage that didn't work out. This is a complex legal battle involving questions of contract law, family law, and the unique complications that arise when your entire relationship has been documented for television. It's a case that highlights the potential pitfalls of mixing reality television with real-life legal agreements, and it's a reminder that prenuptial agreements, while valuable tools for protecting assets, are only as strong as the circumstances under which they're signed. For now, Kandi Burruss is moving forward with her Broadway debut, continuing to build her career while fighting to protect her assets in court. Todd Tucker is pursuing his challenge to the prenup while advocating for primary custody of their children. Both are trying to navigate this difficult chapter with as much grace as possible, at least in their public interactions. The coming months will bring answers to the questions everyone is asking. Will Todd's legal strategy succeed? Will that prenup be thrown out? How will custody be arranged? And most importantly, can these two people find a way to co-parent effectively and give their children the stability they need during this transition? One thing is certain, when that judge finally makes their rulings on the prenup and custody issues, decisions will reverberate far beyond this one divorce. They'll set precedents. They'll influence how future couples approach prenuptial agreements. They'll shape conversations about fairness in divorce proceedings. And they'll add another chapter to the ongoing story of what happens when real life, reality television, and the law collide in unexpected and complicated ways. This is the divorce battle between Kandi Burruss and Todd Tucker. And while the legal experts can offer their opinions and predictions, ultimately only time and the Georgia court system will reveal how this story ends.